Academics at Birkbeck College Politics London are terrified of a very nice man called Eric Kaufmann. Now, I have met Eric Kaufmann. He seemed very polite, very genial. I mean, as you can see, he's not exactly thunder and lightning looking, is he? Looks quite normal.
It's not the devil incarnate, no.
Well, he's just a regular dude.
He walks into the room, you don't just hear the music go dark and...
Yeah, well, no, nothing like that. Right, but Lisa Tilley here posted this on Twitter, along with a blog post that we're going to go through because it's hilarious. So, at least there's something to pick us up. Back in June, I resigned from Birkbeck Politics because of Eric Kaufmann's activities. Activities is doing a lot of heavy lifting there because it really is him just posting on social media.
He goes bike riding. He also goes rock climbing.
No, if it was that, it would be more understandable. It's tweets. I'm more than sad to leave such a brilliant student community behind, but here's why I had no choice. So let's go to her blog.
No choice.
She says, it's because of the impact on Birkbeck staff and students of being in such close proximity to his far-right followers. Now, I don't know whether you could tell by the surname.
Kaufmann.
And if you look at the picture, he's got a certain kind of ethnic look about him. That's not something I care about at all, but she does. She cares about ethnicities and race.
Well, she's a leftist, so of course she does.
Exactly. It's exactly right. She is.
She's getting out the swab chart.
She is exactly doing that. And so his far-right followers are the problem. This Jewish man's far-right followers. I'm devastated to be leaving behind such a brilliant and vibrant community of students, but nobody seriously calling themselves a feminist or anti-racist can continue in a role which involves selling degree programs to students who will end up in Kaufmann's classroom. God, I wonder what he's teaching them. It must be awful. It must be terrible. To follow, there are just a few examples of Kaufmann's recent political activities and their effects, but this is by no means an exhaustive account of my time at Birkbeck. In his own terms, Kaufmann openly advocates for white racial self-interest politics and has been celebrated by the right-wing press as the knight of resurgent white politics. She doesn't give any examples of this, though.
I mean, I can see some tweets.
Yes. I mean, for example, one of the tweets there reads, how do you mark SJW coursework? Which is a bit like evaluating bits of theology orientated to the gods of the left. Which really harks back to the first segment we did, didn't it? Doesn't it? A real dilemma. Can't apply normal standards of logic and evidence, so must try and give it a fair mark, imagining that it is based on some kind of logic and evidence. Good question. Not sure. Don't know what you do, that's the point. You try to be fair. And, what are your options? But, of course, she, being a radical leftist, considers liberal democracy to be white identity politics. Enlightenment values are white identity politics.
This is the white supremacy he's engaging in.
Protestant standards are white identity politics. And to be fair, right, I might be wrong. Eric Kaufmann, the Jewish man, may well have written a neo-Nazi screed that I'm just simply not aware of, right? And so I'm just saying...
I'm sure she'd have it.
The fact that she doesn't present him saying white people good, brown people bad is,
the tweet.
It just makes me suspicious of her view on what white identity politics means. So she says, just as I started my post at Birkbeck, Kaufmann was made head of department. Find it highly unlikely they'd appoint a white supremacist to the head of department at Birkbeck Politics. I just find that really unlikely. Just have trouble believing it. Soon after this, a high-profile event with Kaufmann and others was announced which posited ethnic diversity as a threat to the West, later renamed after objections. At this time, students also drew attention to tweets by Kaufmann comparing black protesters to cattle and complaining about having to mark the work of left-wing SJW students. Right. So what he's saying is that mass immigration is going to be a threat to the West. Of course. I mean, this is why John Cleese was like, London isn't an English city.
I mean, literally everyone agrees with this, except those who want open borders.
Yes. I mean, and it just doesn't... You couldn't have it any other way. If you were pouring, oil into a bowl of water, you would be like, well, okay, eventually, if you continue pouring the oil, there's not going to be much water left, It's just the way things are. It's just how cultures are not mixing, unfortunately. There's very little integration. Yeah.
The melting pot is not taking place to a sufficient rate.
Not even slightly. And we've got massive ethnic enclaves that are continuing to broaden out in certain areas. This isn't about white politics. It's This is merely about something that has been imposed on an indigenous Aboriginal community, many in fact, across the United Kingdom, and that needs to stop because it's artificial. It's not normal to have just a massive open borders policy. You, in fact, going through the statistics the other day, weren't you? How many was it a year?
What, of
visas, permanent visas we were giving out.
Oh, permanent visas. I think it's 100,000 settlement, 100,000 new citizenships, and about 100,000 EU get permanent settlement.
So 300,000 a year.
Yeah, that's permanent.
Permanent settlement.
We get about 600,000 inflow for work and everything else, including the permanents.
Us being one of the most densely populated places on the earth are allowing 600,000 new people in a year. And Eric Kaufmann's like, maybe that's a problem.
And we only have a population of like 70 million or something.
Yeah.
So for the Americans to understand the levels, you'd have to triple your current legal immigration.
Yes.
So
yeah, but this, of course, is being framed as white supremacy. But, of course, this just comes from being basically an anti-SJW, which based. Good to see, isn't it, actually?
He's making YouTube compilations.
Feminist wrecked. Despite all this, Kaufmann remained head of Department of Politics for most of the 2 years to follow. During these years, Kaufmann's political project intensified into, firstly, a more elaborate denigration of left-wing students and colleagues as SJWs, woke fundamentalists, and the woke Taliban. Just a moment of proud appreciation for Eric there. Secondly, into an explicit campaign to roll back equalities efforts, often expressed in the language of incitement around the need to slay and defeat the beast of equalities, so communism. He's against communism. Good. He's anti-SJW, he's anti-communism, he's anti-mass immigration. He sounds like a conservative.
Doesn't want the woke Taliban.
If that's not too much to ask. Thirdly, a forthright campaign to ban and or discredit critical race theory, which has become code for any critical scholarship on race. Yes. Yes, that's absolutely good. You make Eric Kaufmann sound like an absolute god, the king of Birkbeck, who should be continuing his God-approved mission, divine quest, the crusade against critical race theory. Just for anyone who doesn't know, and we're going to go into this in some depth at some point in the future, critical race theory is an American invention based on American political circumstances, an American history, and it's a deeply American ideology and has no place any other country other than America. And even then, it's not good for America either, right?
Doesn't make any sense.
It's a particular way of interpreting what the United States is, and basically it's a secessionist movement that wants to treat black people as a nation within a nation and have them governed by their own laws and have them have their own essential colonies, basically, is what they're saying. They're anti-integration because, in their words, integration is, and I quote, black genocide, right? This is critical race theory, right? I, as a pro-integrationist, and I assume Eric Kaufmann, if he's trying to ban critical race theory, should ban it. It is a Marxist ideology. It's in the Gramscian mold of attempting to change the culture in order to create the conditions for communism. Hence her complaining, he's against equality, he's against social justice, he's against critical race theory. Yes, good.
Yeah, I can see. I just want to give homage to the chat here. Like everyone giving him a big salute in the chat. Just like endlessly, just people being like, yep, good boy. I mean, trying to get rid of the kind of nonsense. I mean, if some black nationalists turned up and were like, segregation for black nationalism or something on campus, and not just on campus, but in academia, and then the professors were like, we need to teach this to the kids all the way down to primary school, you'd rightfully notice and be like, no.
But it's worse than that, because it's not about teaching it to kids. You wouldn't teach this to kids. What it is a lens through which you do your teaching.
When you get to kids, it'd be like, black and white people should be in separate states. Yes. That would be the teaching to kids segment, which we've seen in America.
And we've seen this quite often. Where there was a parent the other day who was complaining that her black child wasn't allowed in the class with white children, and she was like, "What?" It's like, "Why?" And it's like, because you black." And it's like, that's awful. That's just genuinely awful. So, big props to Eric for doing everything he can to ban and discredit critical race theory in the same way that you do everything you could to ban and discredit Nazism, incidentally, because it really is Nazism for black people. I mean, in the beginning of the critical race theory massive textbook I've been through, they literally go, they're all like, oh God, race identity politics. That sounds racist. And they're like, yeah, but, and that's where it goes on for. But anyway, so, and I love the way that she phrases this. This critical race theory has become code for any critical scholarship on race, i.e. not white racial interest politics. If it's not critical race theory, it's white racial interest politics. Bull. Absolute nonsense. Like this two-dimensional communist view of the world is wrong. Anyway, almost on a daily basis, Kaufmann makes inflammatory statements about leftists and anti-racists, comparing them to fascists and Islamic fundamentalists. Again, more salutes in the chat, folks, because this is literally like my YouTube channel coming to life. Right? Among other slurs, much to the approval of his followers. Probably follow him on Twitter and give him a bit of support. Further, his anti-equality statements openly reproduce claims about differences in educational outcomes are desirable because genetic differences which make some groups more intelligent than others. Yeah, but did he actually say that, or are you just inferring that? Are you just taking that from it? Anyway, Kaufmann's campaign against critical race theory imports the already advanced project of censorship and intimidation in the US. Oh, the balls on them to say that. We're being censored. You're pro-censorship. Shut up. Which is aimed at legislation against and confusion and intimidation around teaching and scholarship on race. That's right, because there's only one way to talk about race, and it is from the radical left-wing Marxist position. This has been clearly articulated by Christopher Rufo, who is regularly retweeted by Kaufmann. Christopher Rufo is also a very good boy, did nothing wrong, just Republican academic.
He's for integration, not segregation.
Yes.
And that makes him the bad guy, according to the leftists. Okay.
They don't like their race mixing. You've got to understand, Callum. This broader project...
I really do think they are fearful of it.
Well, they are, because if the race is mixed, then they might not hate each other. And it's really difficult to foment division and hatred between the races if they don't.
What happens to the entire left-wing project if there's no race war? They've got nothing.
Literally. If they can't make black people hate white people and white people hate black people, how do they benefit? No, I mean, really. Like, seriously. What good is left-wing politics if people aren't at each other's throats all day? It's mad.
On immutable characteristics.
On their immutable characteristics.
There can't be any solving of.
Yeah. But again... This integrationist is white identity politics. This broader project targets my own teaching, as well as that of my many other colleagues in Birkbeck departments, and has already resulted in students expressing concern of whether it's even legal for them to draw on scholarship that could be perceived as CRT in their assignments. Well, that's a good point, in fact, because, I mean, I do think it should probably be illegal to indoctrinate people into Nazism in schools.
Yeah. I mean, these are publicly funded institutions.
Yeah. I mean, I guess you could have a private Nazi college.
You fund it, go for it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know who's going to send their kids there, but I'm all for a liberal society. In contrast to this approach to critical race theory, which seeks to censor and discredit, again, the irony. Oh no, now that we're being censored and discredited, now it's a bad thing.
But also, why is discreditation a bad thing?
Also, how is this censorship?
I know, but like the him saying you're bad. Oh my God, you're censoring, discrediting me. So literally, if all I have to do is say you're bad and you're discredited, you haven't got much to stand on.
But again, in public institutions or private institutions, not hosting the thing is not censorship. And that is true. I guess if Birkbeck was the only university not even the only university in London, but if it was the only university or one of very few universities in the country, and none of them would hold what was considered to be a widely held opinion, sure, maybe you could say that was censorship. Because monopoly on the public space or whatever, you claim that was censorship. But I don't agree that this meets the standard of censorship. And I just don't think that universities should be teaching with a critical race theory lens, because I'm a throwback liberal who wants integration. But anyway, Kaufmann's published work openly encourages a good faith engagement with far-right conspiracy theories, specifically white genocide theory. Not a quote. I mean, they're not quoting him there. Just saying.
Also the absurdity of the CRT types being upset about genocide on racial
and let's be clear, this is why they think that he's white identity politics, right? In his recent book, he says the simplistic view that every syllable Richard Spencer or Generation and Identity utters is a lie is incorrect. That's true.
Yeah, if Richard Spencer says I can drink water, he certainly can.
The sky is blue. No, it's not, Richard. I mean, obviously. That's not the problem with the white identitarian movement, is that they are incapable of saying something true. The problem is their intention that underlies the things that they're saying.
Which is very revealing of the leftists. I mean, this is like when we covered some article when they're complaining about flags being a symbol of fascism. This is basically Hitler, and it's like, look, the problem with the Nazis wasn't the flags. It wasn't that they flew flags, and that's why we all hate them. No. It was the genocide and the ideology they took place in.
Is the things they were trying to achieve and the way they were trying to make the world. And then he proceeds to evaluate the truth in their claims. Well, if there is some truth in their claims, what are we supposed to do about that, other than accept the fact that these are true statements about the world? Now, just to be clear, I don't support Richard Spencer or generation identity at all. But if they're saying something that is true, we can't just say that's not true because they are who they are. That's an ad hominem at the very best. It's not an argument. Yeah, exactly. And also, but this puts the left in the position of outright denial of reality. And it's like, really? I mean, don't get me wrong. It's not a surprise that you'd be in the position where you're literally denying reality. But is that wise for you to publicly signal this? Dear fellow academics, I don't like Eric Kaufmann because he says things that are true that I don't like. We should deny these true things for orthodoxy, political correctness.
It's not a surprise from academia.
No, not really. Not well, left-wing academia. Apparently there's a normal academia that can deal with these things. But this good faith approach to fascist conspiracy theories has earned Kaufmann a solid following among the hard right, which is even noticeable on the campus at Birkbeck. I don't know. I've never been to the campus at Birkbeck, but I'm just going to assume that's true. I'm going to assume there's just clan hoods from wall to wall. Obviously, nonsense.
There's going to be people like who walk around and be like, integration. And they're like, damn, shut them down.
Yeah. For example, a generation identitarian movement cell appeared to be operating on the Birkbeck campus. Find that hard to believe, to be honest. Again, she doesn't...
What, 4 guys in a WhatsApp group again? Or?
Well, I don't know, but she doesn't provide any evidence for it. She just states it. Is that right? Then why don't you take a photo or something? But they even displayed posters with Kaufmann's images and quotes from his work on the supposed problems of the white population decline. Well, I mean, when we say white, if we mean British or European, yeah, that's no doubt. We can track the birth rates. We know exactly what the population decline is.
But also, if GI quote you, therefore you agree with GI.
Yeah. But also, the idea that there's a population decline in Western countries is instrumental to the pro-immigration argument. If that wasn't the case, then one of the major pillars holding up the we need immigrants is we need young immigrants to prop up our pensioners because they're not having enough kids.
It's a lie, by the way.
Yeah. Also, there's no such thing happening, blah, blah, blah. You know, it's amazing. Anyway, just a few more examples. In a recent article, Kaufmann claimed that the instance of female students refusing to date Trump supporters provides evidence of progressive authoritarianism, a belief system that justifies infringing rights to equal treatment in the name of emotional safety of historically marginalized groups. Here, the rights to equal treatment is implied in the rights of Trump supporters to sleep with female students, and the female students choosing to reject them as progressive authoritarianism. Now, I haven't read that article, but I doubt she's representing that fairly.
No, I mean, you can see it just with the stupid buzzwords being thrown in there. He's just like, yeah, no, we need a society in which people who politically disagree could be friends and engage with each other. Just like,
have relationships.
You know, integration again. But no.
This absolute bigot wants me to have sex with someone I hate.
Yeah, and she's like, no, we need separate but equal communities.
But I love that it implied, so he didn't state this, right? Implied as the rights of Trump supporters to sleep with female students. I doubt he said that.
It's just that they should mix. It would be good for society.
But again, the sort of authoritarianism, what they're talking about is the never kiss the Tory movement, right? That kind of groupthink on the left where they're like, you're not allowed to have any kind of relationship with the person on the right.
This doesn't exist in the Tory party, in case the Labourites are watching and wondering.
And you can see the outgrowth of this repressed desire spilling out from left-wing movements that are like stupid, sexy Trump supporters. I keep having these fantasies about getting pounded by a Trump supporter, and I just can't stop.
But again, like, why do you need those stickers?
Exactly.
Why do you need to put stickers up saying "I've never kissed a Tory"? It's like I can resist.
Yeah, exactly,
I don't need it.
Exactly. I'm not thinking about them. It's like, yeah, you are.
It's like SpongeBob meme. I don't need it. It's like the glass of water in front of him.
Yeah, and so that I think is probably what he's speaking about with the progressive authoritarianism, because, like you say, it's not even on the right. No other community does this.
No, anyone on the right, and they're like, "Oh, I've got a girlfriend who votes Labour," or she's Labour support. No one will give a toss.
I imagine the Lib Dems probably don't do this. I can't imagine the Greens. Well, maybe the Greens would do it, but like I've never heard of a Lib Dem, pathologizing someone because they dated a Tory or something. Like it's so backwards. But anyway, gets better. At the moment of the Chauvin trial verdict for the sadistic, racist murder of George Floyd. Sign off on that statement, Callum.
The evidence doesn't. The video evidence doesn't show any racism.
What was the name of the lawyer again?
Nelson.
Nelson, that was it, yeah, the hero. Kaufmann appeared on Fox News to criticize those who claimed, he claimed, were racializing what is not a racist issue. There's literally no evidence to suggest that race was a motive in the murder of George Floyd.
Wasn't brought up in the case by any side at any point.
No.
They could have.
Chauvin was married to a Filipino woman, was it?
Yep, had kids with her.
Right. So he's a race mixer.
Right. Also, the other cops with him were of various races.
All of this integrationism, making critical race theory look kind of bad.
It had nothing to do with the fact he was black. It was to do with the fact that he was high as hell on drugs.
And he had just crammed loads of them in his mouth before he was... And he was saying, I can't breathe before he put them on the floor.
Yeah, so. And then the pills being found in the squad car, half chewed, with his saliva on them.
Sadistic racist murder, Callum.
Yeah.
We've established this. Right? And Kaufmann saying, well, they're racializing what is not a racist issue. Well, I guess an integrationist would say that, wouldn't they? Just mad. Absolutely mad. He also used this moment to describe one of his research experiments in his own words. I had half of black survey respondents read some Ta-Nehisi Coates presented as critical race theory inspired. All correct. And half read nothing. And of those who read Coates, their belief that they could make their life plans work out dropped by 15 points. So basically, if you get black students to read Ta-Nehisi Coates and get them to read nothing at all, they come away demoralized after reading Ta-Nehisi Coates.
Oh, God. It's like immeasurable, self-improvement.
Yeah.
The self-improvement in this case is to do nothing.
Yeah.
Self-disimprovement is what's taking place there.
If you just leave them alone, they'll have a better
Self-sabotage.
opinion of themselves than if you get them to read critical race theory.
If you want to self-sabotage, become a critical race theorist.
Yeah, that's literally it, right? Did Kaufmann have an ethics clearance from Birkbeck Politics to conduct experiments specifically on black people, surveying people?
It's human experimentation.
Read this critical race theory. Oh, you can't conduct that experiment on people. That's unethical. Well, I agree.
I love how she's presenting it like it's human experimentation or
Yeah,
something.
I know.
Like he was cutting off their kidneys and
Yeah, I know,
sewing
yeah.
them back on or something.
Okay, Eric Goebbels Kaufmann.
He's talking to black people.
But the thing is, he got them to read the things you want them to read, and you're calling that an unethical experiment?
Based.
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong, I agree, but mad. It's absolutely mad, right? And then she finishes with, on a personal note, I always find Kaufmann's statements denying or diminishing racist violence and genocide basically inhumane. Well, of course you would. But there is something about the timing of these two statements. There was another one about natives in Canada, but we haven't got time. That adds a particularly incomprehensible kind of cruelty. Or he's trying to look at the facts, and this is not cruel at all, but you just find it incomprehensible because you're a lunatic far leftist. There is more to be said about Kaufmann's work. It is reproduced in far-right publications like Amren and Breitbart. Ah, yes, they're basically the same thing. Jared Taylor's white nationalist publication, Breitbart.
I've never heard of Amren.
Well, that's because nobody follows that, because it's a white nationalist publication. Breitbart is just a conservative media outlet.
Yeah.
Basically the same thing. About his own promotion and signal boosting of figures such as Andy No, Bo Weingart, don't know who that is actually. And so the far-right figures, like Andy No, and about his own use of this anti-Semitic term, cultural Marxism, in published work. Anti-Semitic. There is also much to be said about Kaufmann's paid work for Policy Exchange, whose donors are undisclosed and whose groups and organizations whose interests appear to directly conflict with those of Birkbeck's student community he is also paid to teach. Overall, Birkbeck appears to take an absolutist approach to free speech, wherein all of the above is apparently passed without comment or scrutiny from those in the college who are supposed to prioritize the duty of care for their students, protect dignity at work and study, and fulfill the college's obligation under equalities legislation. Well, that's because none of it is in any way controversial. Widely held opinions by the British public. None of it's white nationalism. They appear to just be facts that he's presenting and an integrationist liberal perspective when it comes to politics. Can see why you're feeling personally attacked here, critical race theorists. So basically she's not happy and she wants him gone. And since she can't get him gone, she herself has gone. So good news.
It's great. I mean, it's really is just politics. Just hold around long enough.
Yeah.
If your opponent leaves, you've won.
Just stand your ground. No, you're a bunch of racist SJWs and I can't even mark your work fairly because you look like a religion. Piss off.
If you enjoyed that segment from the podcast, The Lotus Eaters, you can go to prelotuseaters.com and get access to all our premium content.
Things like our book club, where we examine classics like Aldous Huxley's Brave New World and examine the themes that underpin it, and now we're getting worryingly close to that, or modern books like Mark Sidwell's The Long March, which is how exactly we ended up in the current cultural situation we're in and what conservatives can do about it. Or you can check out the other series we have, such as our Contemplation series, where Hugo and Josh decided to, in the latest one, have a look at an examination on the ways that other elections have been rigged for no reason at all. Or you can check out our Epoch series, which is one of my personal favorites because this is where I get to talk about history. And I love talking about just random things from history. And one of the great things we can do with this series is talk about those things that aren't so often discussed. So, I mean, you can talk about Xerxes' army, the vast army that invaded Greece during the Greco-Persian Wars. Or we can go through things like Herodotus' view on the Scythians. Who are they? You probably don't know, but they used to be quite an important people a long time ago, and they're very, very interesting. We've got some really good reports about them. Or we've got premium podcasts, which is things we generally don't want to put outside of the paywall because we might get in trouble for them, such as the list of things that Alex Jones was right about. Or we do just very interesting discussions because there are things that we do lots of work on. Another one is that I'm particularly proud of is where Christopher Hitchens, the famous new atheist, would have fallen during the modern culture wars, because he probably wouldn't have been very woke. But we also have lots of interviews and articles and other things on the website that you can sign up to enjoy, and we're really proud of them.
So if any of that sounds good to you, go over to lotuses.com and sign up for as little as £5 a month to support us, keep the show going, and also to get access to all the content. Thank you and goodbye.